All right, very good. Good morning, everyone. It is now 9:33, and I'd like to call the March 26, 2026 meeting of the STP Project Selection Committee to order. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, please be sure to complete the sign-in sheet out in the hallway before you leave. Members of the audience that want to make public comments later on the agenda can fill out a public comment card and hand that card to CMAP staff in the room. As we all know, this meeting is being broadcast on Zoom and is being recorded. In order for those online to hear what's being said in the room, it's critical that we turn on our microphones and that we identify ourselves when making a motion or a second. For those participating via Zoom, please keep your microphones muted unless you are called upon to speak. With that, let's start today with self-introductions of the members here at the table. I'm Kiama Dobbs, Chair of the committee representing CMAP, and to my left.
Jeff Shelkey, Mayor Batavian, representing the Council of Mayors.
Good morning. Tara Orban, sitting in for Sis Killen, representing counties.
Grant Davis, CDOT.
Mark Pitstick, RTA, representing Transit.
John Paul Deepla, FHWA.
All right, very good. We do have a quorum of the voting members of the committee present. I do also want to acknowledge that advisory member to this committee, Chad Riddle, was not able to join us in person, but he is online. As an advisory member, we do not need to vote for him to participate. So next up is agenda changes and announcements. Staff have not proposed any changes and I have no announcements. Do any members of the committee wish to propose changes or make any announcements? All right, seeing none, we have before us the draft minutes of February 5th, 2026. And before I entertain a motion, I just want to clarify for everyone that the original posted file for these minutes listed Heather Mullins and John Paul Deepla as absent. However, they were present and that has been corrected in the version of the minutes posted online. So with that correction, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of that meeting?
So move the approval of the minutes.
All right, Mayor Schiff.
Second.
Second by Grant. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, the motion carries. Next up on the agenda then is our active program management reports, and we have John Hadsma here with us to provide those highlights today.
Good morning, all. Happy opening day for baseball fans out there. So at the February Project Selection Committee meeting, I noted that there were 4 projects that were aiming for a construction light in April. Since then, 2 of those projects, which are the Sullivan Road and 131st Street projects, those have seen some delays and have pushed for them back to the June letting. The 2 that did get funds authorized for construction funding for that April letting were the Milos Meadows pedestrian bridge, which obligated $2.034 million, and the 16th Street traffic improvements project, which obligated $2.19 million. So in total, that brings obligations for the shared fund to $7.07 million. The LaSalle Street Bridge is still anticipated to get authorized right around June. And when that does occur, it will use the rest of the shared fund mark. All projects that receive an authorization after the LaSalle Street Bridge project will draw from the Regional Redistribution Fund, or if they get authorized before that LaSalle Street project, they will use the funds that from the STP shared fund mark. Currently, there are a total of 12 shared fund projects programmed for planned use redistribution that total $68.5 million. 5 of those are post-obligation cost increases or remainders, and those 5 projects total $12 million. $22.9 million of that is from the LaSalle Street Bridge project. So again, that's kind of the big domino to fall for the shared fund program. There's been no changes with the 2027 through 2030 years. Each of those years is just about fully programmed to the mark, and there hasn't been any reason to shift projects around at this point. Happy to take questions if there are any on the shared fund status update.
Any questions for John? John, I do have one. I see on the reports, there's quite a few listing no status update submitted. Can you talk a little bit about why that is and where we're headed with those? Maybe what the
so one of the
implications
reasons that there's a higher level of non-submittals than usual, is likely due to the fact that we've switched to a new quarterly status update platform, that being in the ETIP using the project delivery module. So we think this has been a significant improvement, and we've heard from partners and users that they agree that this is a significant improvement. However, there are some barriers that we've been working through initially, such as access, getting the folks filling out these status updates onto the ETIP platform. This is a new system for a lot of them, or at least for some of them they have used in the past, but just this is a completely new module within ETIP that we've had to kind of provide materials to show them how to complete the status update and how to submit it, and just getting familiar with that process. We've given a lot of grace to project sponsors with this, and especially, when we were making the transition, extending it by a month, and as you can see here, not necessarily penalizing projects that haven't submitted projects up to this point. But the active program management policies are clear in that failure to submit a quarterly status update does lead to removal of the active program into the contingency list, or in the case if a project is on the contingency list, removal from the contingency list. So I would say that the training wheels that have been on so far with this transition to the new ETIP platform are going to be removed soon, just because this is critical information we need to make accurate programming decisions from year to year. So that's been likely one of the reasons why there's been a higher not submittal rate.
Thanks for that. I think one of the reasons that I brought it up is thinking about, as we go into a new program development, what our policies do say about failure to submit, and understanding that, we'll want to make sure that we've at least gotten a June update from everybody before we go into the call, and June and September updates. And if we don't get those, I think, at that point, as John used the bicycle analogy, the training wheels should be off by then. And I think we need to go back to our expectation that everybody is turning in these updates so that we can make the right programming decisions, especially when we're building a new program. So I guess putting the world on notice that we need to get back to compliance on these, and those rules apply also to CMAQ and TAP and Carbon, as well as the STP local programs. So we need to get back on track. That is really the point. Tara, you had something?
Yeah, John, can you clarify the mechanics of how the updates happen? So many municipalities are part of a council. So who enters the update in the ETIP database? Is that the council on behalf of the municipality, or is each award recipient or each funding recipient given access?
Yep. So in this new system, we are granting access to the project sponsor specifically. So it needs to be one of the 3 individuals that are listed on the project manager designation form. So when we award funding, we have the project fill out a financial lead, a project lead, and then a consultant lead. So one of those individuals will give access to ETIP, and then they have user rights to go into ETIP, complete that status update within the project delivery module, submit it, and then that goes to CMAP, where we review the update. If something's not right, we have the ability to send it back, and then they can resubmit it. And then that's kind of like the workflow or the process of it all, if that answers your question.
Right. Yeah. Because typically, in years past, it was just the council of mayors, just the PL had access or keys to the tip, right? Because it was a really big deal, because you have access to changing federal funding and all sorts of data. So now it's been distributed more broadly to local agency sponsors. Do they have access to edit any of the other information in the tip?
Yeah. Luckily, with this new ETIP platform, we can we've been designating access just for the project delivery tab, so they can only edit the project delivery tab. They cannot go into the programming page and edit funding, move funding from one year to another. They don't have access to do that. So the folks that have the quarterly status update responsibility only have access to that quarterly status update or project delivery tab.
So there's controls in place. Thank you.
Yes.
And just to add to that, those folks can also add attachments to the project, so they don't need to send their attachments through to the PL. They can actually upload those as well. And I think answer the project questions, which is where we kind of get extra detail about some of the status and whether projects are moving the needle on performance targets, things like that. So
Well,
those updates
it
can
makes
all be
sense though that there's that learning curve because they were never given the key. Nobody even
Absolutely.
looked at the ETIP unless
Absolutely.
you were part of the council.
Yep.
For so many years. Thank you.
Any other questions for John? All right, you want to do regional accounting?
Sure. Yeah, there's been good progress on regional obligations since February. The region moved from about 21.7 million to 62 million. There are now 4 councils who've used their entire mark and have begun drawing from redistribution. Those include Central, Northwest, Kane Kendall, and McHenry councils. And in total, those 4 councils have used a combined 13.1 million of redistribution. There's 115 million programmed using planned use of redistribution currently. And as staff works through the March quarterly status updates, those are due next week on the 31st. We'll be closely monitoring projects that are using planned use or been programmed their projects using planned use of redistribution to ensure they're still on track to use the funding in federal fiscal year 2026. There's also some upcoming deadlines within the next month or two that will make it clear for us to know if a project's realistically going to be able to use funding in 2026 or not. And then the last note I'll add here for the report is that funds carried over into federal fiscal year 2026 using an obligation deadline extension will expire on March 31st. Will Council is the only council who hasn't used their carryover balance, and that balance is $3,460,000, which if it's not used by next Tuesday, the 31st, that will get transferred to the redistribution fund at that point. That concludes the accounting update. Happy to take questions if there are any.
All right, thank you, John, very much. And seeing no questions, we will move on to the next agenda item. We have Vicki Barrett here today, and she is going to provide some background on the county safety action plans work that's been going on and how the results of those plans can inform potential changes to our methodology for both corridor and small area safety improvement projects, as well as just the safety component in general that we use to score projects. So welcome, Vicki.
Great. Thank you, Kama. Good morning, everyone. As Kama said, my name is Vicki Barrett. I am the program lead for CMAP's Safe Systems program area, which is focused on cross-cutting safety, traffic safety policy initiatives. And as Kama said, we're here today to really talk about the opportunity provided by the recent adoption of our Safe Travel for All program of work. So if you go to the next slide, when you ask what is the Safe Travel for All program, it's actually a regional planning effort that is comprised of 6 county level safety action plans. So these plans all exist on our website. I'll share a QR code later. So as we start to think about opportunities to improve the work that CMAP does and the projects that we select, we're excited to have this new resource here. And I'll share today some of the background behind the work, as well as some of the tools that were developed during the process of the safety action planning. So I'll go quickly over the safe system approach. You can tell that the words are important to me. It's the name of our program area here at CMAP, and it is a new approach to traffic safety that I want to share a little bit of background about. Then I'll go over the Safe Roads, Safe Streets for All grant that CMAP received, a couple logistics there. The call is expected to open for the last time this week or next week. So there's a flag for a grant opportunity coming. And then I'll talk a little bit about how these plans can help us prioritize our safety needs in the region and also identify recommended safety improvements for those needs, and then share the next steps. safe system approach. This might be new for some of you. If you go to the next slide, I'm going to start by going over some regional traffic statistics that just kind of underline the importance of the safety work that CMAP and all of our partners in this room are doing. This is a chart that shows the number of traffic fatalities in our region. The blue bars are the actual numbers each year, and then the green line is the 5-year rolling average, which is generally how traffic fatalities are displayed to indicate longer-term trends. So you can see that in 2014, traffic fatalities started to increase in our region, and these trends are mimicked at the national scale too. Something changed in 2014 after decades of decline, and we started to see an uptick in the number of people dying on our roadways. And then the COVID-19 pandemic really sent the number of fatalities soaring. In 2021, we had one of the deadliest years in our region's history when it came to traffic fatalities. Thankfully, those numbers have come down since 2021, but we are still above pre-pandemic levels. Similarly, in our region, pedestrians and bicyclists represent a growing number of the fatalities in our region. This is a very alarming trend. These are modes that access transit. They are affordable modes. They are climate-friendly modes, and we want to make sure that our most vulnerable road users are not at an increased risk. So this has been, you'll hear a recurring theme today about bicycle and pedestrian safety as I talk about county priorities. And the other very important foundation of this work is that we know there are equity issues in traffic safety. Black residents in our region are overrepresented in traffic fatalities. As with many things in traffic safety, this is a complex issue to explain completely and accurately, but we do know from our household travel survey data that Black residents travel longer distances and for more hours each day to reach their daily needs. So there's an exposure to traffic safety risks embedded in this, we believe. And also, we know that some of our most dangerous and high volume roadways are in communities of color. So addressing this is also something that really informed our plans. The safe system approach is a new and very innovative approach to addressing traffic safety. If anyone here has worked in traffic safety or touched it in the past, we often referred to the ease of traffic safety, which kind of siloed enforcement and education and engineering into different areas of work. But the safe system approach is a really principled approach to traffic safety. It's informed by programs like Vision Zero out of Sweden, that really look to make safety a more proactive, a more comprehensive, a more thoughtful and a redundant system of safety layers so that when a crash occurs on our roadways, it does not result in a fatality or a serious injury. The safe system approach is often referred to as a Swiss cheese model, and this is something that people in aviation safety are very familiar with. Basically, those layers of safety, safe vehicles, safe roads, safe road users, they all have a vulnerability. But when they are layered on top of one another, the hope is that a fatality can't make its way through the holes or the vulnerability in each layer of safety. So that's one of the success stories. I didn't bring my charts about the success of the safe system approach in Europe, but while we saw fatalities trend upward starting in 2014, countries who have adopted the safe system approach continued to trend downward in their traffic fatalities, even throughout COVID. So I want to talk a little bit about the US DOT's Safe Roads for All grant program. This was a program that was announced in 2022, or first awarded and opened in 2022, that was aligned with the National Roadway Safety Strategy. And it was funded under the Infrastructure and Investment in Jobs Act $5 billion over 5 years. And as I mentioned, the last of those 5-year calls opens sometime before March 31st. So that's between now and 7 days from now. Where another $1 billion will be available to fund the program of work that we have identified in these safety action plans. So please help us get the word out. In 2022, CMAP was awarded about $4 million to complete our regional safety action plan, which is the Safe Travel for All plan. We worked closely with many of the partners here in this room, and we're very grateful for all of the support. And I'll go through some of that work here now. So I won't go into detail about the schedule, but we really went after the money in 2022. By the spring of 2024, and yes, that's indicative of the pace of working with federal grant money. We had really kicked off the work in earnest, working with each of our county partners and procuring the consultants we needed to complete the safety action plans. That work actually continued all the way through December of last year. Although the original and complete plans were adopted last May by our MPO policy committee, we were able to use some of our remaining local money to complete some work that got kind of cut out by our deadline for the FHWA. So that was an added bonus of work that happened. And all of the work that we completed is on our Safe Travel for All website now. There was a robust program of engagement and collaboration within the Safe Travel for All program. Each county had a steering committee. Some counties had 2 steering committees. Those steering committees were comprised of our safety partners at the DOTs, other county agencies like public health partners. We had key municipal partners on the steering committee who were really bringing a local view into traffic safety issues and how to solve them. We also had advocates. We had, service providers, educational representatives, emergency service representatives, police, and fire representatives. So we really, the plans that we put forward have a fair amount of consensus in them, and I think that's important as we talk about using them to further our safety work in the region. So once again, these are the 6 county level safety action plans. I put a QR code here to access the website, but we can also drop a link in the chat. They are all available for download, and I'll show you what's inside next. So each safety plan has to include these 7 pieces. This is what makes it a federally qualifying safety action plan. I'm not going to go over all this today. I'm going to focus today really on the safety analysis that we did inside each plan, because that really helps us identify safety needs within each county. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the strategies and project selections, which are the kind of improvements. And you can tell that we're starting to talk about need and improvement as we do with scoring. A couple caveats that it's important to understand about the plans before we jump in. Although they are called county level safety action plans, they consider all roads within the county. That means state roads, that means county roads, and that means local roads. So it was very important to us that all of our partners were included in that, and that everyone came away with meaningful safety information and projects. All the plans have very similar. I'm going to go back one more. There's one more point to make here. Thank you. They all have very similar components, although the plans really did reflect local county context. So I'll talk a little bit about some methodologies that were different among the high injury networks, for example. And the other thing that we'll have to really consider as we move forward with these plans is we assigned whole municipalities to one county. So we wanted a municipality to be able to access their safety information inside one county plan and not have to go, we can talk about Hanover Park, Buffalo Grove, all kinds of places where they're split across counties. And we gave that local agency the opportunity to join one county plan. So as we put that information out there, it's important for those locals to understand that that they exist in one county so that information is complete and accessible. And then the city of Chicago is a great partner, and we did some analyses separately for the city of Chicago for a few reasons. So in terms of prioritizing safety needs, we did this in a number of ways in the plans. If you go to the next slide, the tool that we are really excited to use as a part of our project selection process are our high injury network maps. Each county developed a comprehensive high injury network map, which includes the national highway system. Every county, except I think McHenry's a comprehensive, had a contextual layer, has a layer that excludes the national highway system. And what that allowed us to do is really kind of dig in more on collectors and local roads, lower functional classifications, again, informing more partners about more safety opportunities. So I'm just going to quickly give you a sneak peek at what some of these high injury network maps look like. These are all being kind of converted into an accessible digital form right now. That's one of the projects we're working on. The Cook County map, we had to cut it in half. I'm sorry, Cook County, you're so big. Includes, indicators of risk on, the major roadways. We also have layers built in. The blue census tracts that are indicated on this map are a new index for hardship that we identified. We worked with the city of Chicago on that. We can talk about that a little bit later if there's time. And if you go to the next slide, just a couple high-level statistics that we grabbed to kind of indicate the greatest needs in Cook County. We saw a big uptick in traffic fatalities within Cook County. Although people outside of cars, that's people walking and biking, only are involved in 3% of total crashes. They are in 25% of fatal and serious injury crashes. So again, you'll hear the bicycle and pedestrian safety underlined in most of these plans, to be frank. You can go to the next slide. I'm gonna go through these fairly quickly. All of these plans are available, as I mentioned. This is DuPage County's high injury network. The blue dots are the intersections, and the red lines are the segments, of course. The top 10 corridors on this plan, on this high injury network, did not include any highways because their serious crash rate per mile was not high enough. So we found some interesting things that were leveling up on local and collector roads. 71% of severe crashes in DuPage County involved aggressive driving. So again, speeding, bicycle and pedestrian safety, recurring themes. If you go to the next slide, we'll look quickly at Kane County. This is Kane County's high injury network. Their high injury network was able to capture 77% of fatal and serious injury crashes on just 10% of their roadways. So what that really does is gives us the opportunity to identify need in a very compelling way. And that was part of the goal of these tools, is to really help us focus in on the places that need improvement the soonest and most urgently. The top emphasis areas in King County, very similar: intersections, speeding, and then roadway and lane departure tended to become a greater issue as we went into the collar counties. The next slide should be our Lake County high injury network. This high injury network was able to capture 66% of fatal and serious injury crashes on just 7.5% of the roadway mileage. So again, we know where the fixes need to happen, and the Lake County plan actually put some specific projects, recommended projects together. Fixed object, pedestrian, and head-on crashes were overrepresented in Lake County. Again, we saw intersections and speeding a primary issue here. This is the McHenry County high injury network. This showed that major collector roads have the highest fatal and serious injury crash rates per VMT. McHenry County is actually the first county partner to have been awarded a safe Streets for All grant as a result of these county plans. They received money to build a roundabout in one of those collector areas, collector road intersections. And then for the emphasis areas in McHenry County that were more than double, over 2 times represented in the crash rates, pedestrian crashes, unrestrained crashes, unrestrained meaning not wearing a seatbelt, impaired driving, bicyclists and pedestrian safety were recurring. Finally, Will County's high injury network looks like this. 68% of fatal and serious injury crashes occurred on just 6.3% of the county's roadways. Again, county meaning all roads within the county, not just county jurisdiction. Again, a great ability for us to identify needs. Roadways with speed limits above 35 miles per hour are about 20% of the roads in Will County, but have 43% of fatal and serious injury crashes. So this is an opportunity for us to look not only at whether the speed limits themselves are safe, but whether compliance with speed limits is an issue. And Will County adopted this, their plan. I think McHenry and Will both officially adopted their plan last spring as well. So another type of analysis that we did within these plans is called a systemic analysis. And what's exciting about a systemic analysis is that it uses crash data to identify roadway features or factors that seem to be correlated with higher rates of crashes. This means that you can identify features that are increasing risk, even if they haven't caused a crash yet. And this is a tool that allows for screening of all projects, for example. So you might not have a project that's on the high injury network, but you might have a project that is indicated as having increased risk, so that when you do pass it through the systemic analysis, you're able to identify proactively something that might be putting your roadway at risk before it has killed or injured someone. So this is an exciting tool. These analyses can be mapped, but if you look at the next slide, you'll also see most systemic analyses look like this when they're finished. So this is a hard table to engage with, even for those of us who've been looking at these plans for a while. But basically, the columns across the top are the features of the roadway that we think are they are associated. They're not necessarily causal, but they are correlated with increased crash risks. So the first 2 rows in this table where it says high and the color on the left is bright red are considered fairly high risk features to have in combination with one another. It's often things like 4-lane undivided rural roads where something like a median would really improve safety and it's not present. So you can kind of understand and imagine those features, how they increase risk. So that is some of the tools we have available to help us identify safety needs among projects. I'm going to now step into how we can start to identify safety improvements based on the work we did in these plans. So our job in the Safe Systems Program area has been to kind of take all these 6 county plans and digest them. And these are some of our summary numbers. There are over 200 policy recommendations within these plans, 300 different countermeasures that have been recommended. And again, they're tailored to each county's issues. So we have an opportunity to combine them for a regional understanding, and we also have the ability to tailor them to local context. So policy themes, again, these are kind of organized by the safe system principles, but I'll just quickly, a couple of these, foster a culture of traffic safety was something that came up in every county plan. There are a lot of changes happening in how people access their safety training, and that's often in the form of a driver's ed class. And a lot of young people aren't getting their licenses at the same ages that they used to, so they're not getting that rigorous training that we all used to be kind of implicit in our education. Safer vehicles, managing the impacts of heavy and tall vehicles on the safety of our system is a recurring theme that most counties mentioned. As I said, speeding, new tools for enforcement, reducing speed limits where they seem to be increasing the risks for drivers as well as pedestrians and bicyclists. Encouraging safer roadways through design features was something that I think every county mentioned. Improving post-crash care, many crashes result in injuries that only become fatal or severe after they are not treated quickly enough. So increasing access to trauma centers and making sure that they are equitable across the region is important. And then safety data was another policy theme. Safety data is a very complex data set, and we found all kinds of systemic issues and reporting errors, which are understandable, but we have some ideas of ways to improve that. Countermeasures are basically fixes to existing safety issues. I said there's over 300 countermeasures listed in our safety action plans. Many of them are informed by the Federal Highway Administration's countermeasures that work. So we are in the process of prioritizing these and kind of matching them to the safety needs that we have identified. Countermeasure types, these are the themes I was kind of talking about before: roadway and lane departures, speeding, intersection treatments, pedestrian and bicyclist countermeasures. These were kind of the ones that each county elevated as priorities. And then the projects, the plans themselves have project recommendations. Part of this, the goal of these plans was to put forward project ideas for our county partners and our local partners. And because counties are still quite big, we liked that we were able to kind of bite off the safety topic at the county level, but of course, we can't put a project in every community inside a county plan, because there are just too many folks. But we were able to identify both specific projects that really need attention as well as project types in an effort to kind of provide project ideas to partners who didn't get a project identified within their own border. These are the criteria that each county used to identify recommended projects on their project list. They almost all considered, the systemic analysis or the high injury networks. Community input was a big factor in determining the recommended project lists. And again, they're all available in the plans. Some of the plans, as I mentioned, have specific projects recommended at specific locations and even go as far to say what should be done in that specific location. But if you go to the next slide, more common in the plans are types of projects. So you can see this was a major arterial intersections type of project. And we talked about the characteristics and risks that exist at these types of projects so that we can kind of offer them as ideas to project partners throughout the county. This is from DuPage, their project typology. If you go to the next slide, I think we have an example. Oh, maybe we don't have an example. Okay, well, other plans did also include different types of, railroad crossings near highways and other types of projects so that people can see projects within their community even if they weren't on the list. So that's an overview of how we want to start to think about identifying safety needs and safety opportunities for improvement with these countermeasures and even policy recommendations in some cases. The next steps for our team are to prepare recommendations for how we can use these safety action plans in the project evaluation this year. That we have affectionately referred to this as like the low-hanging fruit. We don't have a lot of time to revamp major things, but we do want to take advantage of the tools that we have available. And then longer term, our team is working on a year-long project to really look at what are the regional tools that we can develop that will improve our ability to identify both high injury locations, risks, and improvements that really are cross-cutting. And that's it. I'm happy to take questions or comments.
Thanks, Vicky. I think before I take questions, kind of a couple things that got scribbled here by me relative to our methodology. You know, we have safety need and safety improvement in our scoring methodology now. I think the work that Vicky's team has done gives us an opportunity to do a better job with both of those scoring criteria. So move away from SRIs and use the work on the high injury network as well as the high risk areas. And I think, you know, we've always looked to crash reduction factors or countermeasures, potential to reduce crashes as our improvement score. But I think, again, the deeper dive that the team has done gives us an opportunity to really refine that and probably get better gradation in our scoring. So I think the challenge for this committee, you know, over the summer is going to be to think about, you know, do we want to target certain specific projects that were identified in these plans, just certain areas? In targeting that, is it about project eligibility or is it just about scoring? You know, and we've got both the safety project category, but there's also a safety scoring element just to the road improvement projects as well. So I think, you know, going forward, probably at our next meeting, that's the conversation we want to start to have. So just kind of thinking about that and, you know, then open it up here to thoughts from the committee or questions for Vicky as well. So go ahead, Tara.
Thank you for a very interesting presentation. Also appreciate the heads up about the $1 billion being available in the next NOFO. More of an observation, really, during one part of your presentation, Vicky, there was a slide on regional safety policy themes. And is it possible to go back to that? Here's what I think is fascinating. If we go back to the policy themes, and then there's all those different types, there is only one box that we have the ability to effectuate change right now with funding. So safer people, vehicles, speeds, none of that we have the ability. We can't, this committee or CMAP can't get more police out on the street to enforce aggressive driving behavior such as speeding, right? We have the one box, which is encouraging safer roadway design. And the remainder of the presentation focused on that box. So what I think is fascinating about this presentation and the question I have personally, professionally, is how much will focusing on this box move the needle in safety for the region? Because that's the only lever we have to pull. And there are so many facets of the safe systems approach where, you know, we don't use NHTSA funding, right? We don't have the ability to use NHTSA funding to increase speed enforcement,
Yeah.
right? Those are other bodies. So to me, this was a very thought-provoking presentation that you gave, Vicky, because the levers, so to speak, that we have to pull here is focusing on projects, and agree with everything you said, Kama, in terms of the increased amount of data and the tools that we have to inform how much of a safety component is this STP regional project that is being you know, considered for funding. But it is such a multifaceted approach, safety, that I thought this was just an observation that I wanted to share. So thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I will say that, like, foundational principle of the safe system approach is to reduce the kinetic energy in the transportation network. So in many ways, the design of our roadways is the most important piece in that, because it can influence the speed at which cars travel and the conflict points when that kinetic energy really becomes a risk.
Completely agree. However, the pace of and the capital program for each community and our ability to effectuate that change is so slow moving,
Yes.
right? It really is a huge challenge before us.
Yes. it
Thank
is.
you.
Thank you, Tara.
Other thoughts or questions? And I think maybe just to push back a tiny bit to what you said, Tara. I do think that through our design, right, we can and maybe not reduce speed limits, but reduce our design speeds, right? So that brings our speeds down a little bit. And then thinking about post-crash care, just response times, right? Making sure that our designs are conducive to facilitating good response. So so those are two things I think
Totally
that are
agree.
part of the safer roads piece of it. So
Completely agree, but like and again, I'm speaking on behalf of counties, like most of our program is maintenance, preservation, modernization. It's not reconstruct where we can effectuate the change to modify design speed. We do have, speaking for Cook County, we do have 4-lane undivided roadways. And when we're resurfacing, we do try to add, a median or if we can. So, I mean, there are opportunities sometimes to do that, but I think therein, just in terms of the program composition, capital program composition, that's where I'm coming from in terms of like, wow, this is really a challenge.
I see Mike Clemens from Lake County DOT has his hand raised online. This committee's always been pretty good about taking comment and as part of our discussion from anyone in the room. So Mike, did you want to go ahead and add something?
Thanks. I just wanted to say, you know, I think it's a great idea to use the safety action plans. I think using the high injury networks is a great idea for scoring projects. Um, Looking at the memo in the agenda of what was used in the past, I think it would be a good idea to weigh, give additional weight to vulnerable crashes, especially fatal and serious injury, pedestrian and bike crashes. But given that Vicky's presentation just showed that even in Cook County, it's 3% of total crashes. It makes up 25% of fatal and serious injury crashes. In Lake County, it's 2% of total crashes. That's what we saw. So, I think rather than it being a percentage of crashes within the project limit, just raw numbers or even having those crashes within your project limit should weigh higher, because there are relatively few of them in the region. They make up a relatively small percentage, but the impacts are really great. So I think they should get higher weighting, even if the numbers of those crashes are relatively small.
Great comment, Mike. Thank you for adding
Yeah.
that.
Thank you.
And that kind of leads to, where our conversation will go probably at our next meeting is starting to talk about that. So where do we think we want to go with weighting? Is it eligibility? Is it scoring? I think Vicky will be ready, I think, at that next meeting to have a proposal for us for some modifications to our current scoring methodology. So I expect we'll roll up our sleeves a little bit and get into the nitty gritty at that next meeting.
Yep.
Go ahead, Grant.
Did we award any corridor or small safety projects in the last call? Or do we have any in the program right now?
We do have some in the program. In part, as has been our practice, we will evaluate projects in multiple categories.
Yeah.
So there have been some what are arguably reconstruction projects that, because of a safety need within the corridor, scored higher in the safety project type. There's also been some downtown area in a municipality, mostly pedestrian and bicycle improvements that came through the safety category. But I think not to the scale of what's coming out of the safety action plans. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to kind of leverage this category of projects. So as well as just to elevate safety in our other categories if deemed appropriate by this committee. So
I would just think we should have a discussion of if we would be putting in new criteria that would shift what projects are getting awarded in this, in the context of, I think a lot of our program has been state of good repair, focusing on, reconstructions, bridges, and so forth. And any change that would shift away from that, I think we just need to have a discussion and make sure that's above board.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that this committee, when this program first formed, there was a lot of talk about weighting certain project types over others, and we decided at that time not to. If we want to have that discussion again, whether it's, I don't think targeting dollar percentages or even number of projects is the right thing, but I think, the discussion warrants, how can we use the project types we have to impact safety in the region, for example, without, eliminating project types. So I think there's plenty of room for that discussion upcoming. Sure.
If I can just add to that as well, one of the things that we're considering is right now is safety is not included as one of the planning factors, but could it be added as a planning factor with additional points in that category that would apply to a much wider range of types of projects? So right now, we have a complete streets planning factor, and we're debating. We're not saying we are getting rid of the complete streets, but maybe there's a way to split it or combine it together. So there's like some sort of complete streets safety planning factor that could be incorporated. And the weights change on the types of projects, and we would have to look at that as well.
Yeah, I think one of the fantastic things about our methodology is the ability to pivot here as we get better information. So, we have evolved to the complete streets planning factor, as Doug has mentioned. It started out just being about whether you had a policy in your project location, and has evolved to be points for specific elements included in your project. So there's definitely some opportunities here to put a safety spin on those elements as well as part of that planning factor, which would, be across the board then for all projects. So yeah, we've got a lot of discussion to be had going forward. All right. Thank you so much, Vicki.
You're welcome.
All right. That was the meat of our agenda today. So we're on other business. Is there any other business for the good of the committee today?
Yeah, I would like to talk if I could for a minute.
Of course.
I literally came here this morning, and I've been in Springfield for the last 2 days at the state capitol, along with all the other mayors and city administrators from what I guess is Metro West, which is Kane, Kendall, and we had McHenry and DeKalb counties down there. And I guess we're putting on a full frontal attack on the governor's idea that he would like to change the Illinois law and give zoning powers to the state of Illinois versus the municipalities. And this has really kind of stirred the pot real quickly. And being from Batavia, I guess I'm in a town that a lot of people find interesting. And so just the conversation that's been started, because the governor is saying that he wants to get rid of all the local ordinances and change it into a state-controlled thing. We've had a number of people come into Batavia in the last 3 or 4 weeks and want to look at every house that's for sale. And then once they look at the house, they're down at the city asking, is there an ability to, if I buy this house, that I can build another house in the backyard or on the side of it or whatever have you? Would your zoning ordinance now looks like it wouldn't allow that, but under the state one, maybe the state would allow us to do this. So we throw our hands up. We don't know what to say. So I guess now I would say that the municipalities, and I think each one of the council of governments, of which there is one representing all the various ones representing all the cities that we are working with here, are going to Springfield and putting on this dog and pony show down there about how nobody likes this ordinance. And when we got there, we were told the governor had left town and he wasn't there to talk to. But we did get all of our state representatives kind of one at a time, both the senators and the reps, and had a coming to conversation with them about what it is. Are you going to vote for this? What are you going to do? And several times in the conversations, it came out that there's road projects that are kind of hanging in the air here for funding. And there's concern about, well, if we come too negative about this, we may lose some of our state support for this. So I don't know where this is all going, but I just wanted to throw this out to the committee that this is something that's probably about the hottest button I've seen in local state government in Illinois in some time. And seems to be a lot of people wound up about this. So I would think this idea may get dragged into that at some point in time. So just be aware, because it's a real hot one. And boy, I can tell you, having been there and stood in it for 2 days down in Springfield, we didn't leave the Capitol building. We just went from one to another to another to another, as did everybody else that was in our groups. And so we've had quite a couple of days of interesting conversations. And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to go into CMAP now and we're going to talk about this idea. And I think everything was said here, I can find concurrence with. I just want you to make notice that there may be some spill in the air here on what the state's doing versus kind of what you're doing, because several of the mayors brought up about road projects or improvements that they had hopefully going to be done. And there's been some reduction in some of us already about the lack of federal money that used to be here that's not coming at the moment. And how's that all going to fit in? So I will tell you, having been a mayor in the region for 45 years, this is probably one of the wildest moments I've ever seen. So let's have at it. I'm glad we're here and I'm glad we're doing the things, and I have great respect and admiration for our staff, because you folks know what's going on and how it works and can be there to help. But be prepared. I think we may start dragging you to Springfield before this is over with.
And if I could just echo Mark Kukler, mayor or village president of LaGrange, if I can echo, it's a huge concern for us. And I said at our meeting that, the governor is trying to say, Waukegan, Kenilworth, City of Chicago, LaGrange, and rural counties should all be zoned the same. Doesn't seem to make any sense. And any more than an expressway should have the same speed limit as a different road. It's just treating everything the same when they're clearly not the same doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And
you haven't been to Springfield yet with the group, have you?
we have not been down there yet, but we're going in May. So
Sure you are. 'Cause they showed us a schedule. They had it all kind of prorated as to who's going to come on what days and weeks, and they're not going to let this one die. I've never, in my many years as a mayor here, I've never been involved in a situation quite like this where they're lining us all up to get down and do a charge on the state capitol. So
yeah, well, I'm concerned. The Chicago Tribune wrote an editorial in favor of it, and the governor, it was reported in Capitol Facts yesterday that the governor had a poll that showed very favorable results. So I'm very concerned that it's already starting without the mayors.
Came to my town and took the poll. I don't know. Maybe, I don't think yours either. But
I don't think so.
Well, thank you both for raising that. I know that our legislative staff is keeping tabs on that, and we will watch for any bleed over into the transportation world that issues like this bring up. So thank you both. Any other business for the committee? Seeing none, let's move on to public comment. Does anyone in attendance today wish to make a public comment? I see none. Online, go ahead, John Paul. Yep.
Yes, this has been a very productive meeting. I really appreciate the exchange of related to the regional safety plan that Vicki did a great job with sharing with us some new updates of how they want to approach the safety. I do want to encourage that under the those different safety pods, that we should also look at the vehicles related to, as you indicated, the rail and the freight. I think we do have an opportunity this year, next year, to kind of wade in on the type of safety we expect when it comes to freight and lines alongside passenger services. And I think we want to, as much as we can, wade into that. They too have a capital improvement need that will require a dialogue from CMAP or input from CMAP. And we want to really take advantage of it because we do know that derailments are very real and they come in closer and closer to Chicago than we know. And Metro should not be left alone to have these conversations with Union Pacific about these corridors, and we want to weigh in on that. And also, I appreciate the conversation about complete streets. We had a real dilemma last year with complete streets when it came to the crosswalks technology, and even though we had those conversations during the consultant contract period about us wanting to go back and look at designs, they just didn't want to hear it. And we had to figure out a way to kind of intercede more through CMAP on those complete streets. And I'm happy to hear that you want to look at kind of taking a deeper dive on how we're going to approach it next year or this year. But again, thank you for this presentation today. And we too are very concerned about Springfield and its regional zoning challenge. I know we looking at several projects that we know is going to be a problem if it's under the state jurisdiction to decide zoning and capital planning priorities. It's a whole another ball game. And so we too expect to be in Springfield in May, alongside so many other people. And so I appreciate this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John Paul. We appreciate your comments as well. All right. Moving on, our next meeting is scheduled for May 14th, 2026, 9:30 here in this room. So seeing no other business, do I have a motion to adjourn today?
So moved.
Mayor Shelkey, a second?
Second.
Mayor Kukler? All right. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right. The meeting is hereby adjourned at 10:35 a.m. Thank you, everyone.